I feel like the perception from legislators of industrial is like an old factory with smoke billowing out,
Yeah.
right? And that's not the modern logistics facility, the modern manufacturing facility, right? With our requirements in the energy code.
I don't even know one that has smoke.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so I think there is that perception that we're actively trying to change through the economic impact study, which we'll talk about. But how many times have we seen local municipalities pass a agenda, perhaps, but a dock door restriction, a moratorium?
Yes.
Can't build over 200,000 feet, or like what?
Totally.
Right. And they're doing these, in my opinion, without having requisite data of what they're losing in terms of public tax revenue, right?
Welcome to our Industrial Advisors podcast. You have Bill Condon and Matt McGregor, and we have two great guests with us here today in our office. We have Drew Zaborowski. Did I say that right?
That's right. Close enough.
Perfect. Principal at Bear Creek Real Estate Development, and on the NAIOP Washington Executive Committee member and Industrial Government Affairs lead. So Drew, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And we also have Carter Nelson, Director of Government Affairs of NAIOP Washington. So Carter, thank you for joining us as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. Beautiful day here in Seattle. It's not raining. Well, let's you guys could kick us off. Maybe Drew, give us a little background on your role at Bear Creek, and then how you got involved with NAIOP and some of the industrial government affairs side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Started Bear Creek Real Estate Partners about just shy of 2 years ago, and have been in industrial development in the Seattle area for, better part of 13 years now.
Yeah.
Goes fast. Yeah, anyways, Bear Creek Real Estate, private just business partner and I, and on the hunt for industrial development. As it pertains to NAIOP, I've been involved in NAIOP probably since I got in the industry in 2013. And it's been a great opportunity to network, get involved, and give back to the community a little bit. Specifically started in the South Sound Committee, and got to mingle with the likes of Jeff Davis and Travis Hale and some of those guys who were there. And as my role kind of evolved in the South Sound Committee, was asked to join the board of directors, and then that led to my involvement in government affairs, which really has kind of become, I would call it a passion project, in advocating for sound business policies that pertain to industrial real estate. And NAIOP Government Affairs has had a great track record, and I just simply am trying to keep the train going and advocating specifically for industrial, as I think it's the most important for us, obviously.
Yeah, well, we certainly appreciate your efforts on that front, and it matters.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure. And maybe with that, speaking of regulatory issues and stuff, Carter, maybe tell us what are the biggest headwinds in Washington related with our industry, all things regulatory legislation, what's going on, and what can we do about it?
Well, that is the $1 million question. No pun intended. I know the millionaire's tax got everybody's attention this last legislative session. I think, just general tax policy and investment opportunity in Washington is really where we're always focused. But when it comes to industrial specifically, Drew's been on the front lines. We've been kind of dealing with this increasing anti-industrial rhetoric at the state and local levels. And so through that, kind of this push for environmental justice policy, which is pretty broad reaching and vaguely defined, and really puts the burden of solving prior environmental damages to new developers who enter spaces where there might have been some kind of overburdened communities and environmental factors. And so things like that, where we can be educating legislators on why broadly applied and vague environmental justice policy is really damaging to the future of industrial development.
And does that happen because whoever caused the damage is long gone, and so they're just going to try to put that on the next guy?
Oftentimes, I think that's really the thought process there, is that if you want to enter this space, you now need to fix the sins of the past. And instead of really having a broader conversation and a collaborative conversation about how we can really approach environmental concerns, because environmental justice is important. We're not against that. I think it really comes down to, whose responsibility is it to address those sins of the past and
Yes.
how we can work together to not push industry out, not push development out, because that brings opportunities, that brings jobs and economic growth. And so that's really been our message throughout those battles.
Yeah, and if you look at environmental justice, I mean, a lot of the crux of the issue is warehouses being built close to communities, right? And we know that oftentimes we don't get to choose where these warehouses are built. There is a finite amount of industrial land. It's important to our economy, which we'll talk about, but yet we're getting pushback for this. So it's in my head, it's very much a comprehensive plan issue. But to Carter's point, the burden is being pushed to new development. And I think, as Carter mentioned, we're not against environmental justice, but we need to find a predictable mitigation measure to solve for that. And some of the legislation that we've seen is very vague, overarching, and our fear is that these local municipalities aren't capable of handling, or not, I don't say capable, but don't want to get into that fight, right? It's a very political fight, and they're gonna kick what would be a SEPA process into an environmental impact statement for a standard development, right?
Yeah.
We know environmental impact statement, you have to do alternatives analysis. I mean, that's a years-long process where SEPA is a month-long process. So you can imagine if every industrial project that triggered SEPA could potentially go through an environmental impact statement, what would that do to our development supply, right?
Right.
And so hugely impactful, something that we're advocating for, educating for, and frankly are at the table trying to have meaningful discussions with legislators.
Is the general feeling from the legislators and stuff that industrial is not great, they just don't want to support it, or what's the general feeling?
I mean, I can't speak to all legislators, but I know one thing we hear locally and across the state is that these are low-wage jobs. That you know,
Just across the board.
distribution, and
Yeah.
you know, it's some of it is anti-Amazon,
Sure.
not being a fan of that. But I think one of the biggest points that we learned, you know, in our study and our work here is that these are not low-wage
Right.
jobs. These are family wage jobs, and these are opportunities for folks that might not have a 4-year college degree, which is really important and something that is key to our workforce development and opportunities, especially in overburdened communities.
That's right.
For sure. I mean, I think that unless you are in the space like we are day in and day out on the industrial side, you really don't understand how many jobs do get created through industrial development, through industrial warehouses, manufacturing, and what a great thing that is for the overall economy. Even if it is lower, wage jobs, I mean, people are still getting employed, and that is a good thing for the overall
Or how
overall
much
economy.
the average consumer uses something that came through the port, right?
That's
Very
right.
good.
We
Yeah.
often forget about that.
And
Yeah.
I can tell, I mean, one thing we love about our job is you walk in all these different manufacturing distribution facilities and you just see all the different stuff going on. And quite often with our clients, you'll walk in and they'll have, we'll have done their deals for the last 20 some years, and you get to know a lot of the employees, and they'll have banners, 20, 30, 40 years of, the employees that have been working there. So certainly they are good jobs, right? If they've been there that long.
We were in one of our longtime clients, Belmont Cabinets
yesterday.
Incredible company that started in Kent, expanded down into Sumner, employs hundreds of people. To Matt's point, though, manufacturing, right? I mean, brings in a ton of jobs, and the pride of people that work there is off the charts awesome.
Yes.
And so I think there's that component of that side of industrial that is also untold oftentimes. Of
Rainier Industries,
they're
on the top 25 oldest companies in Washington.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
To your question, Matt, I feel like the perception from legislators of industrial is like an old factory with smoke billowing out, right? And that's not the modern logistics facility, the modern manufacturing facility, right? With our requirements in the energy code.
I don't even know one that has smoke.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so I think there is that perception that we're actively trying to change through the economic impact study, which we'll talk about. But how many times have we seen local municipalities pass a agenda, perhaps, but a dock door restriction, a moratorium?
Yes.
Can't build over 200,000 feet, or what?
Totally.
Right. And they're doing these, in my opinion, without having requisite data of what they're losing in terms of public tax revenue, right, which our industrial developments bring, and our economic impact study does a good job showing. And so again, that's just our goal is, before you pass this moratorium, are you sure you know what you're leaving on the table, right? Because that's a very important thing for them to understand.
By the way, who does have a door tax?
There's a restriction.
Restriction, but not because I've heard the float of door tax for years, but I can't think of a municipality that has one.
Yeah, there's restrictions. Try not to name certain restrictions. But there is
Call them out, man.
Call them out.
There are restrictions. There is moratoriums that have been passed. There's ones that are actively evaluating a moratorium, or have a moratorium in place that
Yes.
are evaluating the
Yes,
merits of it.
for sure.
And
I'm aware of a few of those.
yeah, and as we know, policies from, whether it's, San Francisco up I-5, it's the same thing locally, right? If someone passes a moratorium on in Thurston or Lewis County, what is, municipality in Snohomish County? They're going to try to go do the same thing, right? And so we have to educate that it's maybe not in their best interest.
Yes.
You mentioned education. The other educational piece, I think that is important, is if you look at commercial real estate just holistically, right? And you have office, and you have industrial, and you have multifamily, and you have retail. Well, the industrial portion of commercial real estate became kind of the golden child of investment, of activity, of everything about 5 to 7 years ago.
Oh, maybe longer.
Maybe longer, 10 years ago, whatever it is, right? But it used to be kind of an afterthought of like, oh, it's just steady Eddie, industrial, whatever. Now, then it became like, this is where we want to put our capital. And so embracing that concept, if you know that, is a good thing to do to support the continued growth of industrial, because it is no longer the afterthought of commercial real estate. It is the golden child of commercial real estate.
Yeah, and you look at a lot of these funds have allocations to different asset types, and industrial is still a key component of that.
Yeah.
But are we effectively shooting ourselves in the foot in the local market and not getting that capital that's ready to deploy for industrial? And they're going to go to other markets that are, waving with open arms, saying, come to our market, we're rolling out the red carpet, and we're sitting here battling simple regulations, right? And so
we just launched a big asset the other day, and one of the first people that called said, man, if it was just over the border into Idaho with all this new legislation, being proposed in Washington, we're not going to buy there. And that was the first one we'd heard.
yeah,
So
it's real.
Yeah, it is having an impact.
Yeah.
So we've talked environmental, we've talked about some of the challenges. What other than environmental, I mean, obviously power, energy, what other issues are we faced with on the industrial, kind of development side that you're running into?
Absolutely. So we talked about the legislative issues, right? That's statewide policies that we're battling, environmental justice, taxes. We talked about some of the local regulations, doctoral restrictions, moratoriums, you name it. We have the energy code, which the 21 energy code went into effect in 24. And it's a pretty significant impact into what we're underwriting in our budgets, right? And I think the net of it is it's a prescriptive energy code. You can pick and choose different points to get to a total of the requisite points to achieve energy code. But by my calculations, it's about a $5 a building square foot increase for new development. Now you have
just solely based on energy.
solely based on energy code, right? And that's EV auto parking, mandatory EV auto parking. That is mandatory renewable energy. So there's solar panels on your roofs. That is dock seal or air barrier testing, which is solved by a few different ways. That's increased efficient MEP systems. You can't use gas anymore, you got to use electric, right? So the sum of that you put into your budget, then you have your contractor's markup, then you have your state sales tax, then you have your contingency on top of that, right? In case something goes wrong that you have to solve for, and then a development fee on top of that, right? And you add that all up, we're hitting $5 a square foot just on energy code impacts. And again, I'm not sure that was fully contemplated. I know NAIOP was not, approached on, hey, what's the budget impact of this energy code for industrial, which would have been great. And so we're trying to work backwards, educate, to make sure that we don't get another energy code, right, that's going to be even more punitive.
Yeah, and that's $5 a foot over the building?
Over the building,
Over the
correct.
building.
Yeah.
Maybe you can answer this, maybe you can't, but the panel thing has always been in Washington. You're just never going to pay that off because of the weather, right?
The solar.
Yeah, the solar panels. So is that more political, let's do these panels, or is it real? Like if you actually do them, because I would think people would be voluntarily doing them, and you just drive down to the valley, and I can't even think of a building that has them.
I would agree with that, and I don't know the payoff of that, but to your point, we often budget the bare minimum to achieve energy code, right? So if it was a huge...
People would do it for sure, why not?
The whole roof would be solar, right?
Of course.
Or more. We're doing just the bare minimum to achieve code. And it's just at a time when we're battling so many massive headwinds, economics, port volumes, interest rates, you name it. And now new developments have another, call it a $5 a square foot, energy code premium. And some buildings are vested where they don't have that. You can buy a vacant building right now for a lot less than you could build for.
Yeah.
And part of that reason is the energy code, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, and it's created this whole other issue, which is grid capacity and utilities' ability to service buildings. I mean,
Right.
we're hearing an increasing number of industrial developers that are being told no from PSC when they come and they're like, we need this amount of power, they're not able to service them. And so we have a real crisis that's happening now, which is access to energy. And we've gone a really long ways as this, in Washington State in terms of climate policy, but we haven't really solved the need for renewable power.
Right.
Yeah, and are companies running into that issue when they can prove the need for the end user with the power, or is it up front when they're saying, we need 4,000 amps of power because we're going to have a future user that's going to need it? But are when developers are actually able to show that the end user needs the power, are they still running into issues with PSN Energy?
Oftentimes, and you see a lot of the times, hey, this project, this land's for sale. Oh, it's saddled. You got to build a substation, right? And so the developments are getting saddled with infrastructure upgrades. We worked on a project. It was a small $12 million project, and there was three-phase power right down the street. We should have connected. Power company wanted us to build a redundant line from a substation over a mile away to the tune of $1.6 million in a 12 to 18 month timeline on a $12 million project. It killed the deal.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah, so it's an interesting battle, right? It's because it's a spec market, so you can't show your tenant demands, but your building demands are actively increasing because of the energy code, EV, auto parking, not allowed to use gas for antifreeze heaters. So your building, requirements for power are increasing. Your tenant wants more when they come. Power companies are trying to, give you the bare minimum will serve letter. So it's a pretty interesting dynamic, but something that needs to be solved for.
Yeah. Are there any? There's a lot of challenges, with different municipalities. Are there any cities that you think are better to work with within the region when it comes to industrial development, or do things better than some of the other ones?
Great question. I have enjoyed, and a lot of people have varying opinions on this, and there's been some change, but we've had a lot of meetings with Pierce County. That's Frederickson, and I recently just went through a SEPA process there, and they were great to work with. And half the battle is, can you just call someone and get a hold of
Will someone pick up the phone on the other side?
Right.
Yeah.
And we had a great planner down there and a great staff. We worked with some of their long-range planning on some of their zoning code changes. And so it's a great proactive relationship, which I really appreciate, right? So we may not agree on the end, zoning, whatever, change, but at least we're having a proactive conversation. And so there's others, and there's some that are more difficult, but, I would give a tip of the cap to Pierce County, if you will.
Absolutely.
That has been kind of the answer for the last, when Sumner first started getting built out. That was in early on in our career. So like 2005, 6, 7, they were really good.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think it's always the areas that are chasing the new business,
right.
and then once they get saturated, hey, let's throw a B&O tax.
Yeah.
Let's throw a door tax.
Huge traffic
Let's
impact fee, right? Yeah.
but also Sumner
sure.
and Frederickson have been our best absorption markets.
Sumner was incredible. All the developers love them for.
Yeah.
I don't hear it now because there's not a ton of development.
development.
Yeah. A couple projects.
I mean, who doesn't love Sumner?
Exactly. Exactly.
You can imagine what Frederickson would look like if Pierce County wasn't as accommodating.
For sure.
Right? You
Yeah.
can get executive priority for certain projects. They did a great job accommodating that growth in a meaningful manner, and we're seeing other jurisdictions want to shy away from that. And you look at what the net public tax revenue is going to be for Pierce County, and they'll be better for it.
Yeah.
For sure.
And jobs, and you name it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the study and why NAIOP supported the Industrial Economic Impact Study. What was the basis for, and why did you guys get behind it so much?
As we kind of have touched on, there's a gap of understanding for people who are creating policy at the state level and locally, and we really saw that need, the increasing anti-industrial rhetoric, and we needed to have data that we could point to say, to kind of combat some of those claims. The low-wage jobs is definitely one, and highlight the amazing tax revenue and other contributions that industrial development has for our state. And so we decided that it was worth the money to really focus in on that and have a really great study to point to when we're sitting down with legislators and trying to come at it from a different angle and educate people on what the impacts of those policies could have on their communities and on our state's GDP and overall tax revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. I think NAIOP felt like we needed empirical data to show why industrial is good for the Pacific Northwest, because we're hearing so often that it's not. And oftentimes unfounded, it's not. You go to a neighborhood meeting, they're against industrial. They don't want it in their community. But someone's got to show the net benefits, and that's what this report does. So we're pretty excited about it.
Is that report available for anybody to see?
Yes. Yep.
If someone wants to find that report, where is it?
So it's on our website, NAIOP.org, NAIOPWA.org. We can fix that. It's under our research, and it's also the start of what I think is going to be just a continuous effort on our part to really be highlighting the contributions of all aspects of our industry, not just industrial, but I think this is the first study I've seen of this kind, and we've been meeting with stakeholders that are in the industrial space. Ports is a great example, and they love this kind of data because they can point to this as we're, again, all facing rising number of policy ideas that impact industry and supply chain in Washington.
And we'll put a link to it in the footnotes of this podcast. But for the listener, how can they get involved? How can they support?
Well, I think first and foremost, being able to share information like this is really important. We're doing a social media and just general media push. You might see this referenced in op-eds in your communities. You'll also see it on social media. But I think more generally, our mission is to make sure that Washington is a place that people want to invest. And that's for industrial, commercial, multifamily, all asset types. But this study is just one example of when we have enough members that say this is a problem, or we see policies that are really going to affect our industry, we jump into action. We put our money where our mouth is, and that's what this study is. And we're going to continue to have more efforts like that. So I hope folks would consider getting engaged, or at least following along with what NAIOP Washington State is doing. There aren't a whole lot of groups. We have great coalitions, but we're really kind of the main lead when it comes to specifically representing industrial development in Washington.
Yeah, I think it's important to get involved, obviously, and advocate for sound business policies, right? If you're local, that can be joining NAIOP, joining government affairs. That could be, and thanks to our funders who are allowed us to procure this economic impact study, because it's not a inexpensive study, but it's well worth it. But thanks to our funders, so you can donate, dollars towards NAIOP government affairs, which we can then use. So there's a number of ways to get involved, but I think, whether it's your time or your money, we'd love to have you and could use the support for sure.
Yeah, I think it's really good for people to know about this because you guys do awesome work and it really matters. And so we appreciate everything that you guys are doing, certainly being really involved on the industrial side of commercial real estate and just overall for the state overall. It's just a good thing to have industrial product. Yes. Jobs, everything that we just talked about. And so getting that out there to people that just you wouldn't know if you're not in the space. So I think you guys are doing great work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Credit to this awesome study really comes to Eco Northwest, and Morgan Shook led the effort there. We've also gotten really great support from Hubble Communications, which is a firm that really focuses on land use, and they've been kind of fundamental in some of the data center and industrial lands fights in Oregon, which again, we're seeing similar to Washington. And then really just big thank you to our GA funders. We couldn't do this work without the support of lots of different companies who are invested in NAIOP and make sure that we can continue to do this work and stand up for our industry.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining us today. Very insightful, educational, and appreciate all that you guys are doing, and let's keep doing it.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
You.